Florida.
One Yid got an aliyah, he started crying. Like he hasn't davened in the minyan in months. And he got an aliyah.
1 minute.
Even somebody who stayed up learning all night in the shul. And he had to fight, not the anti-minions, not the police, he had to fight a mosquito all night.
Yes, 30?
Should we start?
Yeah, just announced Mr. Shlomi Feintuch.
Okay, today the sponsor of today's broadcast is Shlomi Feintuch and his family, the Ilu Nishmas. No, it's correct. It's
Yeah, both. Leilu Nishmas and the Simcha, both.
Simcha, he made a Shalom Zacher Friday night. I want to thank Shlomi for including us in his Shalom Zacher, and he should be Zeicha to the Brishabi, to his Manoi, and he should be Zeicha to see this grandchild married off, and he should be Zeicha to dance on the table and be relevant and be part of the party by the Chassan and Nitshim of the Senegal.
Amen.
Leilu Nishmas, his grandfather, Moshe ben Mordechai Shlomi Feintuch, yahrzeit was today.
Okay. And Shalom Shalom Aliyah. This Yom Tov with Davar Melech's yahrzeit, the Baal Shem Tov's yahrzeit, a lot of important yahrzeits. And I think it's the Zidichover Rebbe is the first Zidichover. Zidichover. It's his yahrzeit this week. I think tomorrow.
The first? You know how many there are now?
I love our very own Agudah Zidichover Rebbe. I love him. I like when he
Yes, I think Shmaya Reichen was nifter also in Shovuos, right?
First day.
So they didn't have a dime.
I was right there. It was right there. It was up there. I remember that. Okay. Zok the Heilige Mishnah. Minayin la Aruga. So this parak, the theme of this parak is, how do you know that? So Minayin la Aruga, she shisha al shisha tvachim, shezarin b'soicha, chamisha zerayin. How do you know that in a vegetable patch that's all of 6 tvachim by 6 tvachim, you can actually plant in it 5 separate minim and not run into the problem of Kilayim. Now, Rashi has a very interesting, important halacha, because I always thought that the determinant by Kilayim is if the two plants are going to nourish from each other, and you have to keep them far enough away that they shouldn't nourish from each other. But Rashi says simply, I'm dead wrong. So let's see what Rashi says how to do this. Shazarin b'soicha hazarayin. Well, I have an irvov. It's not considered Kilayim. It's not considered a gemishachts. Sheyesh bo kadei lahavish b'neim hafish aroyim. We can get within 1 6 tafach by 6 tafach square. We can get 5 different minim with all the proper achokos. I want you to know this is very relevant today, because if you have a backyard that's 50 by 50 with the right setup, you can fit in with all social distancing 24 people. It's all measured out. So this mission is actually very relevant to what people are trying to do nowadays. So how do you do it? Dalet b'dalet ruchas haruga, memale kol haruach atzamach l'keret. So you actually fill up the entire side of the aruga, which let's see if we find a picture for it. It makes it a little easier if we can find a picture. We don't really have a picture, but if this is what we're talking about, you would fill up this line over here, but you'd skip out the corner squares. You skip out the 4 corner squares. You'd have 1 full row here, 1 full row here, 1 full row here, and 1 full row here, and 1 dot in the middle. The achas be'emtza, garin echad, 1 seed would be in the center. The afalpi, shekol etzel akarnos, sumuchim zelazeh, vein b'nei machlakim mitzvachim. Even though the row here and the row here, they're kitty corner and they actually are right up against each other in the corner, we're not concerned. They don't have the 3 tvachim. So Rashi now tells us an important thing, that the amount of radius each plant is yoinik is 1 tefach and a half. Therefore, if you have 2 plants side by side, in order to avoid them getting nourished from the same soil, they have to be 3 tvachim apart, 1.5 radius for each of the 2 plants. But even though when you have 2 that are kitty corner, you don't have that 3 tvachim distance, ain't kan beis michush. There's not even a shred of a concern. Zok Rashi and Moridik Chedush. The Kilayim, the Kilayim, hakerehu debeina. It's not about unika. It's about being noticeable to the naked eye that there's two separate plants here and it's not mixed together. The loyla have irva, the aklayim kabet krov, avalianika loichashina. We're just concerned about a visible mixture, not about one nourishing from the other. Afilu b'chlai kerem deraisa. Even when we're talking about klai kerem, which is deraisa, we're really discussing klai zroyim, which is only derabban anyway. We're talking about different zroyim. But even by a deraisa, where it's klai kerem, it still wouldn't be relevant. Kidetnan, zeh soymech legeder mikan, zeh soymech legeder mikan. The halacha is, if I have a field that backs onto your field, we're neighbors, and there's a fence in between two fields, I can plant right up against my fence. You could plant right up against your fence. And the Mishnah says there's no problem, even though clearly our two plants will be within 3 tvachim of each other.
I think the pasuk, Yosy, the pasuk seems to, I seem to remember, I don't have it in front of me, that the pasuk itself suggests that if they're too close together, that one saps the strength of the other. Where are the psukim for the climb? Exactly.
Let's see what it is. I don't even know. Who's going to help us find it?
Do we have a Balkaira?
I think there's two, if I believe. One is in Kiseitse, I think.
It's all the tenants in the Borum.
I think so.
Summer patch. Okay, let's see what we have.
I think one is in Kiseitse.
Not here.
That's a big parsha. Can you be a little more specific? They're not. Why aren't they mentioned here? And why isn't it brought down? Pasuk brought down.
There's a Vigdor. Vigdor is our crack researcher.
Yeah, right. And where's Rabbi Mund? Has he been around or what?
Bottom of note 17.
Bottom of note 17.
Save the
there
Bais
it is.
Chodesh, right there.
Good luck, Yosy.
No, page before. Where'd you go?
Let's go back
Page
there.
before. Yeah. Page before it was right there. Right there.
Oh, Leisizur Karmach HaKloim, Pentitka Shamalaya, Hazar Shetizus.
Malaya, there we go.
It just says it will become Osir. It doesn't say anything to do with.
Pen Tikdash Hamalaya. What does Amalaya mean? What does
What
that
grows, what grows, Rash Samilu V'toisus, Shazar Moshe. What grows after they're mixed together becomes Osir. But it doesn't say why it's Osir.
Pen Tikdash Hamalaya. I understood that to mean that it somehow it saps the full strength. Malaya is the fullness.
Rash Milui V'toisus. This is the growth. Shazar Moshe. That it grows. So what becomes Osir? What becomes Osir is the additional growth.
Additional growth. I don't know what you're talking about.
What is Rashi? How do you have Amalaya? Tikdash Amalaya. The Malaya will become Kodesh, will become Osir. So what does the Malaya mean? Zamilui v'toitzvish shazar moisef. How do you translate that?
I don't know. Moisef.
This is the
I don't know.
additional growth that the plant grows.
Yeah, so what it somehow restricts the full growth of the plant. That's
It
how
doesn't
I
say
understood
that.
it.
It doesn't say that. It just pen tikdash amalaya. Rashi, if you plant Kilayim, it will become osir. What will become osir? The Malaya will become osir.
What is that?
What is the Malaya?
Yeah.
Milui v'toisus shazar moisef. Whatever grows in the condition of Kilayim will become osir.
Still
I think
not
it
clear.
means 1 second. When you put one seed in the ground, a certain amount grows. Then you're going to put a second seed that doesn't belong there, and now something additional grows. So whatever that additional growth is, that's what's usher. Isn't that what it means? That the second plantation adds to the first one, so that whole thing becomes usher.
So that means any growth that occurs after the mixture.
What do you mean? When they're
Right.
is it? What do you mean? Is there a secondary growth if they're separate from one another? Are we talking about some kind of a secondary growth?
Additional growth. It grows more.
So that means
It grows more.
Dilma just started, sorry.
So it won't grow more if they're together. Is that right?
It doesn't say that.
But if they're separate, they will grow more.
They'll grow more regardless. But what are we going to answer the growth that occurs after they're in a situation of climb? Right? Their growth up until that point was independent growth. The issue is what part of the plant do we answer, whatever grew in that situation of issue, the illegitimate growth. I think that's very logical.
Okay.
It's not telling us that's nourishing.
Okay, just this is all new to me. It's never how I understood it originally.
It wasn't how I understood it either. That's why I think Rashi here is a little bit of a bombshell, and it's not conclusive because we're soon going to see that nourishment does have what to do with it, and we'll have to sort it out. But I just want to point out what Rashi's saying, and then we'll sort it out as we get through the sugya. So Rashi says over here, "Ein kan beis michush." The fact that they're within 3 tefachim of each other and they're yoning zemizah is not even a shred of a concern. The gabe climb heker hudavinan. All we care about when it comes to climb is optics. It's all about politics. It's all about how it looks. It shouldn't look like it's mixed together. The Kilayim kapitz kra. The Torah's makbid on Kilayim meaning a mixture. Avol liyanika loy chashinon afilu b'klai akerem da'iraisa. We're not concerned about yanika. Kidetnan ze soymech legeder mikan v'ze soymech legeder mikan ve'afapi di yanku mitasai. Even though they are nourishing from each other underneath the gate. The chol shekain klai zroyim derabanan, and surely klai zroyim, which is only derabanan to begin with. L'chashina liyanika. Kidetnan gabe roish tur lekamon v'shmaitin, like we learned by a case where one row of a field of a vegetable garden protrudes and sticks into another field. We're not concerned about that. The gabe beishuris. So the way they used to finish their fields and their gardens is they would plant it in a formation that comes to a point. So the edge of the field would look like an arrow. And sometimes that point would protrude into another field. So you have one min that's growing in another field with another min, and that was not usher, because you could tell that point is separate from the field that it's spreading into, and you could see it's connected to the field that it's coming from. Yeshkan heker gadol. And therefore, there's a very big noticeable distinction between the multiple minim in this field. Ruach zru tzofim v'darim. So what we're saying is this row here is growing north-south, and the kitty corner is growing east-west. That's a huge distinction. If it's growing in two separate directions, it's obvious they're not mixed together. So that takes care of the four sides. So I planted here, 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 and here, left out the corner pieces, and now it's very distinct that each of these four are different. However, between this center to the two sides, or the four sides, that needs our harchaka. That needs a harchaka of kedayinika. The ain't sham heker. So what Rashi seems to be saying is, if there's a clear distinction for some other reason that shows they're not planted together, that's good enough. If not, then kedayinika is the distinction. So it's not. It's like they say in Tel, it's the siman, not the siba. We're not worried about yanika, but the reason why we want a separation of kedei yanika because that would create an obvious distinction. So tzarchachaka kedei yanika, the ein sham heker. There's no other heker. Kedei yanika creates a heker that they're distinct. If you have a mikravi, if they would be closer, have an irvuv, it would be mixed together. Therefore, mafarish dal geroinim, bedal aruchos, toya. If someone is going to explain this Mishnah as meaning four individual seeds, not the complete four sides, he would be making a mistake. That's not true. Because if you just need to stay away 3 tvachim from each other, then tes zeroinim yesh lizroyaboy. You would have been able to actually plant 9 seeds. Daled b'daled akronos, 1, 2, 3, 4. and then you could have gotten in another 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and each of these seeds would be 5 apart from each other. And therefore, so if you try to be mafarish that a dal green and dal arucha is tayadi archaka mishunika tesa rodim yesh lazoreva, then our Mishnah should have said you can plant 9 individual seeds. Dal b'dal akranos, ve'echad b'chol ruach, b'ruach, ve'emtzoi, ve'echad ve'emtzah ruga, ve'yesh ben kol echad ve'echad gimel tvachim, kishur yinika step achum echad l'chol echad, and you'd be able to maintain social distancing of 3 tvachim between each of these seeds. In order to limit it to 5, you're actually filling up each side, the entire side, not just one. Until just before the corner. Even though the kitty corners, there's absolutely no space in between them, they're actually touching kitty corner. We do not care. In Kilayim, Heker, Ba'oma, who the V'inikin appreciates. All that counts when it comes to Kilayim is optics. If it looks distinct and it looks separate, it's not a problem. So this is to me a bombshell chiddush. I think David Zolti would agree it's a bombshell chiddush because it's hard to accept even because our conventional wisdom has always been that it's all about Unika. And here we're saying all Unika counts for is if it's not Kedei Unika, that's also another way to create a distinction. But there's much easier ways to do that. So let's go into the Mishnah. How do you know that if you have a patch, a vegetable patch, that's 6 tvachim by 6 tvachim, that you'll be able to plant 5 different species in it? Dalid al dalid ruchas aruga, the four sides of the aruga, just leaving out the corners. The achas bent and one individual in the middle. Shenemar kika aretz toitzi simcha, like the lad talk about Klal Yisrael, but we're going to grow in a great way, and it's comparing us to the land that will spread out its growth. And like a garden, its seeds will grow. It doesn't say zar all and its seed, its seeds plural. And the Gemara is going to explain what the drush is. But from this post you see that you can plant 5 things in a typical patch, and a typical patch is 6 tvachim by 6 tvachim. So let's see the Gemara. Now, I have one problem that I don't have the answer to, and I'm going to throw it out, and I'm going to ask the Olam if either now they can explain to me why it's not shver, or throughout the sugya, as we discussed it, and things become clear, maybe you can come up with a pshat. And this is my problem. My problem is, I understand that each of the 4 sides you could plant, because they're distinct one from the other. But why only one seed in the middle? Why not the entire north-south row? Why would that be a problem? If I did this north-south row, why would there be a problem? I'm 3 tvachim from the 2 parallel rows, and it's the parallel rows that we're most concerned with because it looks like it's growing together. So I'm 3 tvachim from this parallel row and 3 tvachim from this parallel row. And if they get closer, here these 2 rows shouldn't matter because they're perpendicular to my growth. And just like the fact that this and this are perpendicular to each other is a distinction that they're 2 separate crops, 2 separate areas. So why don't you have that same distinction when you're actually T-boning the top and T-boning the bottom? And that's something.
Yosy, why do you need the corners to be empty? According to your logic, as long as one's going to you have the same sort, in the corners, you could use that same logic. You're going to say.
That's a very good
Obviously,
point. So if
I don't know.
they're touching, there'll be a problem.
I don't know. I'm just saying. You see, there's a difference in the corners. You can't have it. It has to be empty.
I hear. So Oibazoi. So why only one dot? Go up a tafach here and a tafach here, and leave a tafach in between.
No.
No. Yeah, over here it couldn't touch. Since it's kitty corner, it's a different direction, and if it was touching, it would be a problem. So make a vertical line and don't touch. So instead of extending 3 tvachim, extend the 2 tvachim and leave a blank tefach, and you leave a blank tefach.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But I thank you for bringing it up. It can't touch because then, you see the kitty corner was only acceptable with 1 blank to make that heckers. So you definitely need a blank to make a hecker. But you'd have a blank here as well. So I don't know. I went through the whole sugya and I can't figure out why that wouldn't be allowed. And the Gemara actually specifically asks a Shaila, what happens if I planted right down the middle? And that's why it became a little bit more difficult to me. Maybe when we learn the sugya together, we'll figure out the answer.
So what's the teretz? What teretz?
I don't have a teretz. I'm stuck. I
You
don't
said
know.
the Gemara asks it.
No, but the way they learned the Gemara is that the road down the middle was also built deeper, so they recessed it. So they dug down the tefach and they did a road down in the trench, and that's where they have a shaila. I can't understand. Ask the shaila even if there's no trench. You know, when I shot the Gemara, I got so excited. Oh, finally my problem. And then when I looked at the Mefarshim, even though from Rashi it's not clear, but the Archker learned that it's speaking where it was in a trench. Why did you get a trench for? So I'm not sure. But maybe when we learn the Gemara together, we'll put our minds together. We'll figure it out. Okay, let's see the Gemara. My mashma. How in the world do you see from this pasuk? How do you see that you can plant 5 minim? Amar Agudah, very simple. Kika aretz toiti tzimcha. So the first part of the pasuk is toiti is chad, simcha is chad. So the fact that this kika aretz toiti tzimcha, the word toiti tells us one plant. The word simcha includes another plant. Okay, hare trey. Now we have 2. Zeru'ah is trey. It doesn't say Sarah, it's seed. It says Zeru'ah, it's seeds plural. So that's together 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. Pa'arba. And then tatzmiach, which is the last word of the pasuk, hachamisha. One second. I think Yidel is trying to figure out how to get into it. Let me just answer if that's okay, so I can tell him how to get in. Yidel, we're in the middle of learning. So can I give you the Zoom number?
Sorry?
We're actually in the middle. Could I give you the room number that we're in?
Oh, because I was looking to Finkel.
Oh, Finkel's better. So why? So what's the Finkel? What's the best
I
today?
put in your number and
Okay, yeah. It's. Let me give you another number. It's 603.
let me get back to it. Sorry. Right.
Well, if maybe if I can, I'm going to tell you a story when you come over. If I care, we're happy we have a spy here.
What's the ID number?
603
603
550 Finif Newell 1948.
550
1948. So 603 550 1948.
That's different. The one that I do,
And Motzei Shabbos, we're on this channel.
and then go through. Follow me. But nothing more.
603
5 minutes. 550. Okay, go ahead. 603 550 948.
Yeah,
1 minute. And 129.
yeah.
Okay, I'm in.
Thank you.
But what? Okay, I know what it's. Oh, so you had 1948 and I was using the other one. Right.
Yeah. Okay, Shkoyach. So we'll see you on the inside. Oh, Yidladu. Listen, I'm happy you were by Finkel, because there's a famous story with this Amauris that was making Pesach the first time. And he comes home to the side, he doesn't have a clue what to do. So he tells his wife, Timachatova, guide you the shulchan, kick it on out from the fence there, look in their window, see what they're doing. You'll come back, you'll tell me what they're doing, I'll know what to do. So she goes over there, she comes back 2 minutes later, no, what are they doing? Nothing. So it's okay, maybe the guy's a little delayed from shul, he didn't have a chance to start. 15 minutes later, he sends his wife back, please go see what's going on there. Again, she goes back. 10 minutes later, she comes back, she's white as a ghost, and he asks her, what happened? So she says, nothing. A half hour later, he sends her again. Again, she comes back, white as a ghost, nothing. So he got angry at her, and he says, you're lying to me. You for sure saw, you don't want to tell me. And he gives her a slap across the face. And she tells him, if you knew what to do, why didn't you send me to check out the neighbor? So tell me what's going on by Finkel. Ich will doch wissen, was du tust. Okay, so let's see what we got. Okay, so from the pasuk we learn, we extract 5. Because you have Toichi is 1, Simcha is 1, Zureh is 2, and then the last Tatzmiach is another 1. So that's 5. So how do you know?
This is a pasuk in Yeshaya. How did they know before Yeshaya? How did they know how to plant in a 6x6 before Yeshaya?
That's a good question.
And this was a burning question of the time, I'm sure. How do you plant 5 in a 6x6? So that's the pasuk they bring down in Yeshaya.
Yeah.
Okay, so till then, I guess there was a big problem.
Well, until again, they might have done the halacha, but this reinforces for them. I don't know. So let's see what it says over here. Now, we only know half the equation. We only know that you could plant 5 in a patch, but how much is a patch? Zokt Gemara, the Kimluhu Rabbanan, the Rabbanan on their own figured out the Chamisha Beshisa Lo Yinoki Me'adadi, that 5 different species in a patch that's 6 by 6 will not be yonik from each other. Zokt Rashi, Kimluhu Rabbanan, the Stam Aruga, Hanizros Ba, Hezeroinen, any aruga that you could plant 5 different plants into, kachi midasa. It would be 6 by 6. The chamisha zeroinin b'shisa tvachim lo yanki emtsoi, because the center will not be yonik from the sides if it's 6 tvachim by 6 tvachim. V'shebaruchos mehadoti lo yanki emtsoi v'shebaruchos mehadoti. The center and the ones on either side will not be yonik from each other. The shir yonika is kol zera, because we do know that the shir yonika of every plant is tefach umechza. In mokum zera, that includes the mokum zera. So it's not a tefach umechza plus the space that it takes up. The total circle is a 3-inch diameter. Harei min hazera hanizra b'gvul haruga keneged emtzoi ba'ad emtzoi gimel tvachim. From the edge, including of the plant growing on the edge, until the plant in the center, including the plant in the center, is 3 tvachim. From these 2 facts we learned the Sover Tanagidon, Shinika Zera Tefachim Mechza. That's where the Tana got from, that the Yinika of Zera is Tefachim Mechza. Midalakava Mokoim, Lazera, Hanizra Etzel Agvul, Lashiva Etzel Karen, Elafilu and Bala Zera, Keneged Emtsi Ilsa, Zairoi. Even if you would plant, which you are, right? You're planting exactly across. So you don't only plant in the corner. The corner from here is the hypotenuse of a 3 by 3 triangle. Rather, it's from here to here is only 3. Even that, they assumed you were allowed to, and therefore they knew that 3 is the unika. Because it's not like a. So the way they got to a piece of land, the way they got to the idea that a typical vegetable patch is 6 by 6 is because they figured that since you could put 5 into an area that they know is yonik for a tefach and a half, that means that it would have to be centered between the 2 on either side. That would mean that it was 6 altogether. But we still don't have any information of where the Rabbanan get it from. So tomorrow we know them the hard the kimluhu Rabbanan milsi. How do we know that that they are saying the shir yanika? Where do they get that from? Dr. Rashi. How could you rely on, where did the Rabbanan get this from, that the Shir Yanika is a radius of tefach and a half? Where did they get it from? How could they know? Where did they get this information from? They're such experts in agriculture. Who told you this? How do they know this? If it was a halacha l'moshe Sinai, okay, but they came to this conclusion that Yanika is a tefach and a half. How do they know this? So tomorrow I'll tell you how they knew it. They actually knew it because they consulted with experts. When we know that the Kiblu Rabbanan Yosy, the Amrab Chiyah Bar Abba Amrab Yechanan, my Dichsiv, we went to secular experts. My Dichsiv, it says in the pasuk again a bomb chiddush that the result is going to love. It says like Sasik Gvul Rayacha Asher Goblu Rishonim. So pasuk shot in the pasuk is you're not allowed to move the gate. If there's a gate between you and your neighbor, you're not allowed to move it and steal land. Our Gemara is telling us, we learned from there a halach of Kilayim. The Sasik Vul Reacha tells you, Lita Samuch L'Meitzer. You're not allowed to plant your plant right up against the gate because Lahak Kishkarkoi Kishira Shagoblu Rishonim. You're not allowed to plant so close to the gate because you're going to impact your neighbor's land. You're going to hurt and weaken his land. So there's 2 isurim now we learn out of Wasasik Voreacho. A is what we always learn shot, that you're not allowed to move the border. But B is you're not allowed to plant right up against your border because it's going to end up weakening the land of your friend, of your neighbor, because you're going to be nourishing your radius of a tefach and a half. Hashagavlu Rishonim, that the earlier inhabitants of this land, they determined, because they were experts in agriculture, and they determined these rules. So Rashi says, Umiheim Rishonim, who are these people who know the law of the land? It's the people who lived there before you. And Mariam, the Chivim, the Shivim. So you Bekim Bekach, they were experts in agriculture. Kida Ashkan B'nei Seir, like you find in B'nei Seir. And now the Lord is going to elaborate. Gavul Shagavlu Rishonim Masasik, the borders, meaning the extent of Yenika, that the experts before you determined. You shouldn't violate them. My Gavlu Rishonim, Amar Pshul B'Achmeni Amar B'Yon the Chsivit says in the pasuk, Ela b'nei Seir ha'chayri. These are the b'nei Seir of the Chayri, Yoshvei ha'aretz, who live in the land. Fresh the Gemara, Atu kul alma Yoshvei rekininu. Only the b'nei Seir ha'chayri lived on land, and everybody else were Buzz Lightyear, who lived in space. But that's not what it means. What it means is Yoshvei ha'aretz means al shahayu b'kiyin b'yeshuva shel aretz. The Chayri, the b'nei Seir ha'chayri, had a specialty, and they understood the land. They were one with the land, like these greenies like to say. We have to become one with the land. They were environmentalists. They were one with the land. So they knew clearly, this amount of space would be required for the Yanika of Azayas. This amount of space is required for wine vines or grapevines. And and this is how much radius you need for Yunika of a fig. And
so they held the Hilchas Kilayim, you're saying?
Well, this wasn't because of Kilayim. They just knew how much space they had to leave for their plants to have the best growth. And we're adopting it from them. We're actually accepting it from them. Okay. So what does it say over here?
This is going to be this is a drash. It's not right. It's not because
of course it's a drash.
The pshat. It's not the pshat. The pshat means the Rishonim were the ones who set the boundaries to Eretz Yisrael and to the Shvatim, and even within the Shvatim. That's the pshat. This is the drash.
But this also says you can't have that attitude. Do the goyim, the vice and gurdish. Our Hilchas Kilayim is based on knowledge that we're getting from the goyim.
From the Chayri, yeah.
The Chayri. The Chayri, Rashi says, Chayri, if you unscramble the letters of the word Chayri, Shemarichin es aretz. They smelled the land. They were able to smell the earth and know what this earth is good for. The Chivi, Omer Papa, so you toyamin es aretz kechavi. They would taste the earth like a snake which eats earth, and they would be able to tell. They would able to tell exactly what it was. Kechavi kanochash shemay chaloi afar. And by smelling the land, they knew exactly where everything's being yonik and what's the best land for each type of plant.
That's like today in Italy, they say the northern Italy is good for grapes. Northern California is good for grapes.
That's right. Right, and they knew their land. They became free from their physical possessions, and Rashi says because they were kicked out from the Bnei Esav. Bnei Esav Yerushim. So they became free from their land. They were freed of their land because they were kicked out. Okay. Amar Abasi. So now we're going to get into very technical analysis of this mission. Amar Abasi. Aruga toichavav chutz mikvulaha. The halacha is that around on either side of every row you need walking space so that you could service. It's called a service corridor. You need a service corridor to be able to service the vegetables growing. You need to be able to. Rashi specifically talks about watering them. So when we say this patch is 6 by 6, that doesn't include the tefach wide pathway that goes around it. So really a 6 by 6 patch is really 8 by 8 because it has around it a 1 tefach wide service corridor. Tanya Namihachi, Aruga, Toy Chashisha, Gvula Bakama. How big is its gvul, meaning its service corridor? Kinetnan, Rav Yehuda Omer, Roichev, Kamole Roichev Parsa. Its width is the width of a foot. And how much is that? That's a tefach. Omer Abzer, Vitem Reb Chanina Bar Papa, my time with Rav Yehuda. Where did Rav Yehuda get this fact that it's the width of a foot, the width of a tefach. Where, how are you going to irrigate it? By foot. You're going to carry a watering can and you're going to walk around it and you're going to water it. Ma regel tefach, just like a regel is a tefach, avul nami tefach. And they ask, why did the Agudah use such a funny notion of roich of parsa? Why didn't he just tell us tefach? The answer is because he wanted to allude to the pasuk. Since the Makar, this is the pasuk, he wanted to pick parsha footstep because that's what the pasuk is talking about. The shkisha berekah. So now we know every patch of vegetables at 6 by 6 is really 8 by 8 because of the service corridor around it. Omerav, aruga b'churba sheninu. This aruga that we're talking about an aruga, a 6 by 6 patch that's on its own. It's not surrounded by other 6 by 6 patches. Why is that? Because if it's surrounded by another set of 6 patches, well, then the side walls of each of these squares is going to be butt up against the side wall of another square. Now, it won't be up against it. Each one has its own tefach, so there'll be 2 tefachim apart. But you're going to have 2 parallel rows. You can have 2 parallel rows of different types of vegetables that only have 2 tefachim in between them. And we said that if there are 2 parallel rows and you don't see a distinction in between them, then you need 3 tefachim because that's the mola yanika. And we'll need that unless there's another way where it's obvious they're not the same product. So because of that, Rav says that the only way you're allowed to plant all 4 sides is, of course, only if it's a patch by itself. But if it's a patch amongst other patches, you're going to have a problem. Correct the Gemara, why is that? For Ika Makam Kronos, there's a way to allow the patches to be one up against each other, and that is if you configure it a little bit differently. And let's look at the art scroll. He does it beautifully. The way you configure it, instead of having the entire side planted, only have half the side planted. And then, even though it's right up against another one, and you only have 2 tefachim between these 2 rows, but these are separated. Now, how far logically do these things need to be separated by? Logic tells us that since they're parallel, the rule is they have to be 3 tefachim apart. So let's actually see how many tefachim apart they will be. Because what the Gemara is telling us is this will be 2.5 tefachim, and this will be 2.5 tefachim, meaning there'll be 1 tefach in between. If I drew a line this way, there will be 1 tefach in between the edge of this row and the edge of this row. So let's look at what the diagonal line would be. So we know that the line in distance from here to here is 1 tefach. We know the 2 service corridors that are butt up against each other are 2 tefachim. So if I have a triangle that's 1 tefach by 2 tefach, the hypotenuse is going to be that distance. So 1 squared, so if we use the formula a squared plus b squared equals c squared, 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4. So we need the square root of 5. The square root of 5 is actually not 9, so it's a lot less than 6. Let me see what the square root of 5 is. I'll use my handy dandy calculator. So let's do 5, and I'll push 2 by mistake. So let me get rid of that. Clear. 5, and I want to push square root. I'm not sure where square root is over here. This is square root of here, I think. No, that doesn't work. Let me see if I push equals if it helps. No, that doesn't help at all. Does anybody know how to use a calculator? Maybe I'll push square root
That's
first.
a reverse Polish notation. There you go.
Ah, here it is. So 2.23 is what the hypotenuse would be, which is less than 3. That's a problem that Toshis has with Rashi. Toshis has a whole different shot of the sugya. But that is one difficulty that we have, is that based on the way Rashi understands the Gemara, we're only going to be 2.23 away. Now maybe it's not a problem because they're not actually aligned to one another, where one starts, the other one ends. So it could be it's not a problem. But according to Rashi, the distance here will be 2.23. So let's go weiter. So Zok to Gemara. We could have this patch to be surrounded by other patches, because if you configure it properly, you'll still be able to make it mutter. Zakta Gemara, Ami Berav Mishmei Rav, B'malei es a karnois. The problem here is Rav wants to learn a case where you're not just planting half the row. Rav wants a case where you're planting the entire row. When you're planting the entire row, then there's no way to allow this patch to be surrounded by other patches. The only way to do it is if you are going to leave blanks. Zok to Gemara, but we still have an Eitzah. Plant from the outside and don't fill it up on the inside. What does that mean? That means, why don't you offset things? And there's a good picture. There's a good picture in the Bach over here. What the Bach is suggesting is like this. You're right. I agree that I can't plant here, 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 and here, but I could plant 4 kitty corner to the center one. So why does Rav say it has to be an aruga in a chorva where there's nothing around it? In fact, you could kitty corner put 4 around it. So why did Rav say it has to be an isolated aruga? That's because Gzeira, Shema, Yamalit occurs. We're afraid that if we let you plant it that way, kitty corner, we're afraid someone will, by mistake, fill in those 4 on the sides, and then it will lead to the climb. Why should it be any different than whenever you have one field growing into another field in that pointy formation? That's allowed. Did we not learn that if the row of a vegetable patch extends as a point into the next field, what they would do is they would plant a center row much longer than the rest, and on either side they would gradually fall back. So if you looked at an aerial view of these fields, it would actually look like a pencil point, and they would often let that pencil point puncture into the next field, and that's mutar halacha. Why? Because we're not worried that it's Kilayim, because since you see that pencil point, even though it's right up against the other product, but you could clearly see from the pattern that it's separate. If they should near a soif soda, because it looks like it's the end of a different field. So Gemara in Rosh Tor Baruga, he holds that when you say Rosh Tor, if you have 2 big sodas, and one soda opens up into the other one, or if you have a vegetable patch near a soda, or a soda near a vegetable patch, but you have 2 vegetable patches together, there is no heter of Rosh Tor, because everything's too similar, and we're afraid that will be Kilayim. But Shmuel argues in Rav, and said, Aruga ben Aruga Sheminu. He holds that no, we're not speaking about a lone patch like Rav said. We're actually speaking about a patch surrounded by other patches. And in where does he argue? He must argue, either he holds, you do say Rosh Tor Baruga, and that's probably how he holds you say Rosh Tor Baruga. Fekti Gemara, welcome Miss Arvi Bahadadi. Even though you hold Rosh Tor Baruga, the fact is that these leaves are very bushy, and the leaves are going to get mixed together. So the kasha here is, when you have 2 rows that are side by side, we know you only have the service path in between, so they'll get mixed together. So even though where they're planted, they're 2 tefachim apart, but the plants grow wide, and the leaves on top are going to mix together. So Zakimara, it's speaking b'noite shur lakam, b'shur lakam, mamshich shor ruach zu, b'tzat keren mizrachas sufonis, b'shor ruach zu, l'tzat meravas teremis. So what Shmuel is saying, when he's allowing you to plant these vegetable patches together, is he means using the same eitzah as Rav, as we decided before. The Gemara asked originally, why can't you plant it this way? Shmuel, this is what you're allowed to do. Even though this is going to grow over, it's not going to get confused with this. So this might spread into here, but this might spread into here, but this will not spread into here. And that's why, according to Shmuel, it's going to be allowed. Okay, so let's see what we have. So Shmuel holds you're allowed to plant it that way. Rav holds you can't. And the reason why Rav holds you can't is because we're afraid is because Rav wanted to to speak about a case where the whole row was full, and Shmuel doesn't have that restriction. He says that even you don't have to plant the whole row. We'll talk about a row that's not full, and in fact, it could be a row amongst rows. Amar Ula, Bo b'Marava. In Marava they had this shaila. This is the shaila that I was talking about earlier. Hefkia telam echad al pnei kula. What if you made one row connected to all the other rows? Rashi is not very clear. Rashi says, Loshin kriya, you tear out, shekereya hakarka, you tear out the earth, so Rashi doesn't say exactly what it means. Telam manashura, one row, al pnei kula, shehever mizera shebet safan, l'zera shebet darim, der chamtzoi, you created a path from the north row to the south row. You made a perpendicular path between the north and south rows, and you went straight down the middle. You planted it with one of the minim that was there. Or a sixth min. Now, what would be the halacha? So his shaila is, the article speaks out that the Ram explains Rashi similar to something that Tosfos says, and Tosfos says Pirush Hemik Telamechad. So with Rashi says the word Hifkiya L'Shukriya means you dug it out. So basically, what I did was, if this was what we were talking about, you dug out a trench straight down the center, and you planted there. So since it's not on the same level, there's a shaila. Maybe it should be okay. Now based on what Rabbi Leo Weinstock said, now I understand the Gemara shaila, because we're talking about if you actually dug out a trench from all the way to the top to all the way to the bottom. So now technically the north-south trench that you made will be touching on either end. So it's not like a kitty corner where there are some blinds. So if it's touching on either end, then the only distinction is the fact that it's lower because it's planted inside a trench. That's the Gemara shaila. So what happens if I went from end to end and I planted inside a trench? So Dr. Gemara, if Kita Lamechab Tekulamau, on Reb Sheshes, Ba Irvev, Ubita Lesashua. He holds it's still going to be Osir, because it still mixes together. Rashi Ba Irvev is Osir. Rashi says it's going to be, Rav says it's going to be Osir. Ravasi Amar, Ein Eruvin Uvat Lesashua. It won't be Uvat Lesashua, meaning we say it's distinct and it will be allowed. And there are those who are Garis, Rav Ashi with a shame instead of Samach. And that makes sense because the next Gemara is going to be Esvei Ravina la Ravashi. Ravina asked Ravashi the following kasha. You're saying it'll be okay, but we have a problem because we have a brisa that says, Hanoiteach shtei shuras shel kishun. If someone plants 2 rows of kishun, and beside it, parallel to it, shtei shuras shel diluin, 2 rows of diluin, and parallel to that, shtei shuras shel polamitri. That will be mutter. So let's just get quickly what the types of kishun, diluin, the cucumbers. So kishun are cucumbers, diluin are gourds, and polamitri is some type of bean. So you have 3 different minim, and you planted 2 parallel rows of each min. So in total I have 6 rows. 2 are diluin, 2 are kishun, and 2 are polamitri. The loch is mutter. But shura achal shel kishun, v'shura achal shel diluin, v'shura achal shel polamitri asur. One of each will be asur. Why is that? The answer is because when you have 2 together, Rashi says, 2 together creates a distinction. This is one type. 2 together is another type. 2 together is a third type. But when you have 1 of each, it looks like one big mixture, and that looks to be Kilayim. So the problem is, you see, you're not allowed to plant parallel rows. So how could you, Rav Ashi, say that you're allowed to plant parallel rows? I will get mixed together on top, and it looks like one big mixture. So tomorrow, Shani Hacha Dika Sharava, or Sharacha. By these 3 plants, Pulamitri, Ilun, and Kishun, they're not just picked arbitrarily as examples in the Brisa as to why they're also. It's because they have a tremendous growth. They're very leafy, and they grow much bigger than typical, and they'll look like one big mixture. But a regular plant, and other types of Zroyim, if you planted it in a trench, maybe it would not be a problem. Omer Avkada Rabbi Yochanan. Harotza Lamal is Kol Ginos Yerek. What if somebody wants to fill up his entire vegetable patch with yerek, and he doesn't want to, he wants to have 5 different medium, but he wants to have it a lot more full than what we discussed until now. So he can do very simple. Let him take a patch, 6 tvachim with 6 tvachim, the oigel bo chamisha, and create a 5 tefach square. So plant 1 min in a 5 tefach circle. I mean, if it's a 5 tefach circle, that's going to leave over a half a tefach on this side and a half a tefach on this side to complete the 6 tvachim. And then have 4 rows of 6. 4 rows of a half a tefach, I mean, all the way around. So here, your kamat all full. You're only missing a kitty corner and this little triangle, 4 of those. But basically, you're all full. The whole center is full, and you get the 4 sides. Why is this allowed? Because since, even though it comes very close here, over here and over here and over here, but since it's a circle, it's such a different shape, it's so distinct that it'll be quite noticeable that it's a separate min, and that would not be Kilayim. So let's see what the Gemara says inside. If you want to be able to fill up your whole field with 6 by 6 patches and have 5 different minim inside, what you'll do is oigel bo chamisha, plant 1 min in a 5 tefach circle, and then the half a tefach all the way around. Umamalik karnisah kol masha yirtzeh. You can put whatever you want. Now the problem is we're not just looking about 1 patch. He said kol ginosai. He wants to have a whole bunch of patches. So if I take that formation of 6 by 6 with the circle in the middle, and I plaster my whole field with rows of that, I'm going to have a problem. Why am I going to have a problem? Because these 2, the vertical row here, the vertical row over here, is still going to be parallel to the next patch because I'm going to build another square right near this square, and there'll be another vertical patch. So let's draw it so that we can actually visualize it. Draw it, it'll be easier to visualize. If I have this center patch over here with a circle in it, and I have one right beside it, and one right beside it over here, and over here, my parallel lines, which are only 2 tvachim apart, here's 2 parallel lines with 2 tvachim apart, they're going to mix. These 2 are going to mix, these 2 are going to mix, and these 2 are going to mix. So how could you claim you can fill up your whole Gina with this? You're going to have a problem everywhere. Zok the Gemara, I'll tell you what the X is. Va'ika de beni beni. Zok the Gemara, Omri de Bianai. I'm going to make sure I'm in the right place. I have stuff in between. What I will do is I'll have to leave it empty. The Havamina here was he was actually going to fill this up. He's going to say you have to leave this empty. If you leave this empty, these 2 tvachim will be enough of distinction. These 2 tvachim in between each of the patches will be enough of distinction that will say it's not going to be considered Kilayim. That's what Rabbi Yochanan would hold. But Amid Rabbi Yanai holds that if you leave these 2 tvachim of empty space, a fallow in between each of the patches, that will be good enough. Rav Ashi Omar, ruin Shesi Zarid Erev. Erev Zarid Shesi. What Rav Ashi says is you don't even have to leave this space empty. Rav Ashi holds in these 2 tvachim, here you plant this way. So it's perpendicular to the rows that it's separating in between. And here you will plant this way. So in either case, you could actually fill the whole garden up, not have any fallow space at all, but you make sure that whenever there's 2 parallel lines, the infill in between them will be perpendicular to it. And then it'll be clear that there's a distinction between the different plants. Eisei Ravina Lavashi. Frank Ravina Kash on Lavashi. Avoidus Yerek, B'Yerek Achar Shisha Tvachim. If avoidus yerek means a patch of vegetables, and it was referred to with the lashon avoidus yerek, is because that's how the Gemara and Kilayim refer. The Mishnah and Kilayim refers to them because it's always talking about the vegetable with the space to work around it. So avoidus yerek is a generic term to describe a patch of vegetables. Avoidus yerek achar shisha tvachim. If you wanted to get 5 different minim into one patch of 6 tvachim by 6 tvachim, you have to do it as per the prescription in our Mishnah. It's got to be kitabla merubas. It's got to be like that grid that we discussed that exists in the Mishnah, which means the 2 sides, the top and the bottom, and then one in the center. But it's mashma, that's when Hudashari. Halav Achiyasar. It's mashma from that price that the only way to be able to do it is to follow the configuration of our Mishnah, not Rabbi Yochanan's new configuration with a circle. So how could you say your new configuration of circle? The reason why, let's have a look who we quoted from. This price that said, the price that said, Avoida Yerek b'Yerek Achashish Lebakim, the price that says that it has to be only according to the square prescription in our Mishnah, really, he would agree that Rabbi Yochanan's Eitzah with the round will work as well. But the advantage of doing it with the Mishnah's configuration, if you use the configuration of the Mishnah, which you're only doing the 4 sides and one in the middle, then you can actually extend the sides up into another field. You have that heter of that distinction. When you extend one row up into another field, it's considered distinct and it will not be usher. However, if you do it Rabbi Yochanan's way and you fill the entire center of the patch with a round 5 tvachim patch and have 4 of those sides, that's too busy, and there we would not allow the Rosh tour. So the reason why the Brashi said that's the only option is that's the only option if you want to take advantage of another kula, a secondary kula, the kula that you can actually allow one row to extend up into a different field. But if you're willing to forego that, then you can rely on Rabbi Yochanan and fill in the entire center of the patch with a 5 tefach round center, and then have the 4 sides done. You have 4 rows of a half a tefach all the way around.
Sure.
We can stop here. So I still don't understand why you can't have one up the middle.
Why? If you have five things planting, then how can it won't work?
I have one on top, one on bottom, one on either side, and then one up the middle. And
Hey,
I'm
you can't
maintaining
put
the
a-
distance.
I'm really learning tomorrow morning.
Oh yes, what time are we learning tomorrow? We can have 9 o'clock. We'll have the second year will be 9 o'clock, and the first year will be what time? 7:20. Is Akiva here?
O'clock is okay.
Yeah, I am. I'm here. 6:30 tomorrow.
6:30.
Yeah, is it okay?
6:30.
For me to
Because a
go.
lot of minyanim are starting at 8. You want to go? You want
Oh, the
to go
shuls are
to
open
7?
again.
You want to get to regular schedule? I
Shul's
want to go to
open
regular
again?
schedule.
The
No,
shul's
not
open again?
shul. I'm saying minyan. I don't know when minyanim on the street are for Sunday. There's an 8 o'clock minyan. I want to try to get back to what
I
we
got an 8
call
o'clock minyan
regular
tomorrow.
scheduled.
I
So
got
then
an
why
8
would
o'clock
you
meeting
want to
tomorrow.
learn? Why would you not want to learn at 6:30?
6:30 for me is fine.
I'll try to come.
I could see from Mechi's eyes that he's saying no way.
So then I.
It's not true. I actually,
So we-
because I'm not having a meeting, I'll daven v'sikin. It's gonna. I'm not sure.
Yes, so 6:30. The point is 6:30 allows you to daven nates if you want, and if you're davening with the minyan, you can go to either a 7:30 or an 8. But if you go to an 8 o'clock minyan, then you can go to the 9 o'clock shear. We got to try to separate. We have to assume people are going to minyanim now, so I can't. 7:20 ruins both the 8 o'clock minyan and a 7 o'clock or 7:30 minyan. And Sunday, in shul, we used to daven either 7:30 or 8 o'clock. That's the rational thinking. And then during the week to go back to 6 o'clock.
I'll try to come. I'll try to come at the 6:31.
Okay, so we'll do 6:30 and we'll do it 9.
Yeah, 6:39. They'll give you enough of a break, Yosy?
That's fine. Yeah, and they're both at 6713. They're both on the channel
That's
8.
correct.
And if you
Main
go in
channel.
and you see action there,
7613.
just be quiet and I'll pick you out into a breakout.
Eva, could you publish a list of the minyanim so we know where to go?
What do you mean? Where streets are? Just drive down any street and look for the.
Yeah.
Go through the backyards. Just go to the
Follow people.
backyard. Any Jewish
We should
backyard.
have
that's
Chaim
like a
Tzvi. I really think Chaim Tzvi has a drone. He should map all the minyanim. The others should know.
I got invited to a minyan that was approved by the Rav. Yeah, the guy who made it asked the Rav permission.
And the Rav said yes.
Yes. Rav said yes. I went.
Okay, that means the Rav saying now he's getting much more
It
lenient.
seems to be. I don't know.
As a matter of fact, I know
Person
Hamidi-
invited me